For an avid reader, the smell of a new book and the touch of an old pen is nothing less than pure bliss. However, there has been a constant debate between old-school reading and writing enthusiasts over the impact of a tale told on paper versus a story narrated over a digital screen. Writers of all genres from every era have evolved as readers. Legendary stories have been told and heard through these papers. But a question that constantly pops up during these discussions: have we lost the touch? Award-winning mystery novelist Anita Nair takes on the value of longhand writing and the physicality of it.
Hi, I'm Anita Nair and I'm a writer. Well, for me, writing it works on many levels. It works as a verb because I like the whole process of writing itself, actually taking a pen and putting pen to paper. Then there is also what writing means to me, which is a more visceral way of expressing my thoughts. That there is this, it's an abstract thought. And I'm not sure where the thought is leading to. I'm not sure about the dimensions of that thought, etc. So it stays in my mind for a long time, and then as it stays, it germinates and it develops. I add to it by doing immense amount of research on the subject that I'm, at that point interested in. Now, as important to me as my research is this sounds a little bit eccentric, but I need to find the right paper to write on, so I like to touch the paper, see how it feels, and because I use a fountain pen. To this day, I only use a fountain pen. So what happens is that I need to be able to feel that the ink will flow very easily on that paper. It won't blot it, and it won't, kind of scratch. The nib will not scratch the paper, etc., and so on. The first memory of the word paper, of course, was newspaper. Because that was what landed in the house first thing in the morning. So for me, paper meant something pristine. It meant something that was filled with lots of information. So I thought that a newspaper or a piece of paper contained a lot of things, a lot of pleasure, a lot of thoughts, a lot of facts, and so on. So music is like a big thing for me. It occupies as much time and energy as my writing, except that the difference is my writing now occupies a public space. My music is very personal. I like cooking very much, so I cook a lot. I like sport. Now, when it comes to writing, I personally am very comfortable both ways. I can write on the desktop, and I can write, and I write longhand. But I choose to write longhand because I think what happens, the way I understand it and the way I see it, is when I'm using a PC, I can tend to ramble on because I think I have the luxury of, cut, paste, delete, whatever I want to do, and so on, those actions. But when I'm writing longhand, every word that I put down is thought through.
In the last century, readers have acknowledged the work of women writers as a strong way to spread modernism and feminist statements, and so did Rupa Pai, who is the author of Taranauts, India's first fantasy adventure series for children.
My name is Rupa Pai. Hello, and I write for children. I've been a children's author for over 25 years now. Writing is my way of expressing myself. Other people express themselves through music or photography or whatever, but I always have found from when I was a little girl that I express myself through writing. Well, I write for children, like I said. I've written fiction, I've written non-fiction, I've written for younger kids, I've written for older kids on subjects that, that span the gamut from economics to fantasy to medicine to philosophy to life skills for children. So all kinds of fiction and non-fiction. So the process for each is different. But I would say my process is basically to break down the entire project into a series of blocks, which I then start filling in. Because I cannot work without kind of structure of some kind. It's perhaps because of my science background. So I need to have everything in bullet points before I start writing. As far as my favorite books are concerned, I think one life-changing book that I took very long in reading. I only finished it about 15 days ago. I've never read it before. And it's been like a revelation to me is My Experiments with Truth by Mahatma Gandhi. So I think every Indian should read it really, just because it's such a courageous man with so much conviction, the journey of one single man who made such a huge difference, who was quite ordinary, became extraordinary through his actions and his moral compass and his conviction. I do a bit of digital and a bit of paper. Paper is, of course, irreplaceable. I have to use some paper for my basic structure. I don't use styluses on tablets and things like that. So I'm a computer engineer by training. So computers are very familiar to me, and I love using computers. But the thing is, for my structuring of the book and for general ideas to come in, I might be sitting at a cafe with a notebook and paper and a pen. That's how I work, and then I bring that back to the computer and then convert it into digital. There is a nice weight in the hand when you're reading a real physical book, and the weight tells you how thick it is or how juicy it is sometimes, where the Kindle will always weigh the same. That's one thing. And then that turning of the paper, flipping back to see, hey, what did I miss? Wait, I've forgotten that. What happened there? To be able to flip back to a particular page, all that is so much more organic, tactile with paper, with a book, with a physical book. So when I see things, I retain them better. So, I mean, of course, you see things on a screen as well, but somehow the way the words form on the paper and seeing an illustration on the other side and page numbers and the dog ears, all that adds to memory. To me, yes, definitely. I prefer to see my thoughts on paper because I can make all these arrows, and which I'm sure you can do that on a tablet as well. But I like to have my fingers occupied.
From the Shakespearean era to the New Age rom-coms, writers have evolved through social conditions, and so have the genres. Milan Vora, best known as India's first ever Mills and Wounds author, has an interesting take on the subject.
I write fiction, I write in the long format, I write in the short format. I particularly like writing romance and I like writing humor. Actually, writing has been the closest connection I've had to myself. It's the one thing that has been a constant in a lot of changes and things that change in life, cities, people that you lose, everything. But writing has been the one way that I keep connected with whatever is going on. So I use it to express myself, for myself primarily. I write on paper, and I've always said this, and I find that I can't change it. And I have a big fat folder, which actually I bought at a stationery shop, which has a lot of compartments and segments. So in my head, even an idea that I jot down on a piece of paper, I put it into one of those pockets in that folder, and it all goes in there. I cannot write on a computer, so I have to write on paper. I have to let it flow on paper. I keep scratching out, I keep moving forward on it. Earlier I used to even make the mistake of rewriting parts of it, which were indecipherable, to make sense of it, so that I'd worry and say, will I even be able to make sense of this later? But I cannot get ideas to flow if I'm sitting at a laptop. But books that I have read in the physical format, in the print format, have definitely stayed. Maybe there is a sense of temporariness when you're reading something in the digital format. Because it's like, even on my Kindle, let's say I have 150 books, and at any point in time, then if somebody says, oh, this is really good, and I'll download it immediately, and it'll be sitting on my Kindle, and I might read a little bit, but I'll still go back to the one that I've made more progress with. So there is a bit of a maybe fickleness, when you're reading in the digital format.
Stay tuned with us, and after this very short break, we will continue to explore the writing journey of other well-known writers. Welcome back. We have with us now Devpriya Roy, best known for her books Friends from College, Indira and the Heat and Dust Project, to give us a deeper insight into the journey and process of writing a book.
Ideas are not hard to get. What is difficult is the process of crafting a book. For that you have to have a certain kind of patience and a certain kind of stamina to stay with the characters who come to you. Writers are also a little bit superstitious. So we don't go digging around too much to investigate where the idea has come from. We're just grateful when it does, and we're just grateful that we can stay with it long enough for a book to come. Oh, I'm a great buyer of notebooks and of handmade paper, and I even write letters. So I have a big soft corner for paper. I type mostly when I'm writing my novels. I type it directly into the computer, of course, but all the other, like I said, the backstory, all of that is always on paper. So I have a stack of notebooks. Read in both forms. So, I think we are I think the word for that is a hybrid reader. So of course I have a Kindle. I buy a lot of books on Kindle, but I continue to buy a lot of, paper books. And I think I'll continue to do both. I don't really have a preference, of course, as far as storage is concerned. For those of us, my husband is also a writer, he keeps buying a lot of books as well. So, sometimes we feel we are swimming in books. That trouble is often solved by, your Kindle. But I think there's also a certain joy in beloved books when they are around your house and you're just walking around and you're having a very normal day and you're stressed out about something, you're frazzled, and then you just catch sight of one of your beloved books and you remember, and for a moment you pause. And that's why I keep continuing to buy real books, so that I can keep them around me. I have been very lucky in the sense that I have, in publishing, men and women have always been very, very respectful, they've taken me seriously. Where I would like to say that sometimes it rankles is that, when you're a woman novelist, then a lot of men think that only women read you, right? That you're writing for women, you're not writing for everyone. But then again, I have often been surprised also, which I must say. For example, when my first novel was published, it was called The Vague Woman's Handbook, and it had a very nice, very breezy pink kind of cover, and they were marketing it as chick lit. It was imagined that it was targeted at women, but I was often surprised because a lot of men read it, and a lot of men then emailed me to say that, oh, I really enjoyed reading it.
Author of 3 best-selling novels, The Rosabelle Line, Chanakya's Chant and The Krishna Key, Ashwin Sanghi, and the author of Asura, The Tale of the Vanquished, Anil Neelkantan, also weighed in from their answers of experience in writing.
Most people ask me that, Ashwin, you write fast-paced books, thrillers, historical, mythological, mysteries. Why do you do that? The reason why I want to write exciting books is because I lead an utterly boring life. And books are my escape. They allow me to create a fantastical world around me of larger than life heroes, more than evil villains. It allows me to create conspiracy theories. It allows me to ask that delicious what if question, that what if this were true. So in that sense, what writing means to me is to be able to live a parallel life where I get lost in the story that I'm writing. There is undoubtedly a certain romance to reading using paper. It's just the feel of the paper on your fingers. It's the ability to be able to curl up with a book on a sofa. It's the ability to be able to enjoy a cup of tea while you are reading. It's the ability to be able to smell the paper when you are flipping through the pages. So there is always that particular romance element, the emotional bond with the paperback or a hardback, as it were. All the books in the Bharat series on an average have taken me about 2 years from start to finish. A book will normally take me anywhere between 8 to 10 months in terms of the initial foundational research for the book. Then I would normally end up spending anywhere between 2 months and 4 months on the plotting of the book, and then around 8 months on the writing of the book, and a final 2 or 3 months in terms of the editing and polishing of the book, and which includes a couple of rewrites of the book also.
I'm Anand Nilakantan, author of books like Asura, Tale of the Vanquished, Ajaya, Roll of the Dice and Rise of Kali, then of course the Bahubali series and Vanara. I also have written screenplays for very popular television serials like Siya Ke Ram, Chakravarti Ashoka, Mahabali Hanuman. I always wanted to tell stories. I am a good liar. A good liar can choose perhaps, if I say the cliched way, 3 professions. One is a politician, 2 is a lawyer, and 3 of course is a writer. So I chose to be a writer. Ideas, I write what I am familiar with, what I love to write, what I am passionate about. So basically most of my works is in mythology or history or proto-history. I take a very proto-history approach even while writing mythology. So all my books are based on the ancient Indian Puranas or Indian history. I used to scribble a lot. I have been, not only scribble, I draw a lot. I started as a cartoonist. So my memory of paper is writing, drawing cartoons of my teachers, getting caught, thrown out of the class, standing outside the class and drawing whatever I see. So paper, even now I draw, even now I don't prefer digital medium to draw. I use ebooks only while I travel. Otherwise I cannot stand ebooks, to be very frank. But traveling I cannot take a big, usually the books I write and the books I read are big ones. I love to read bigger books because it gets me involved. I like slow books rather. It gets me involved and gives me a lot of thought process. But I cannot carry the big book in an aircraft or something, it becomes difficult. So only while I am traveling, I use a Kindle.
From getting their books published to reinventing themselves to write in different genres, the reason for using a male pseudonym by women writers through ages are many. But here is a step taken by the JK Paper and the Times of India to appreciate the efforts of these women writers through ages.
I think women writers have gained more confidence in themselves and are able to express themselves more freely than they were with the way society has progressed, with the way education has progressed, and the opportunities and the exposure that women and men also have received in the last few years. Technology, the improvements in technology and the availability of resources that were not available to us earlier. So I think all authors, all writers have evolved in a huge manner. Women Author Awards have been started to encourage and recognize women in the field of writing and literature. It is felt that men have a disproportionate advantage in the field of publishing, even now after so many years. You know, it was 174 years ago when the Bronte sisters first wrote under male pseudonyms. All three of them wrote under male pseudonyms because at that time it was felt that the writing by a woman in the field of fiction would not be accepted by anyone. And 174 years later, we still are at a state where a lot of women authors, especially in the field of crime and thrillers, write under male pseudonyms, or they just put the initials so that people should think it is a man writing. Look at Joanne Rowling, popularly known as J.K. Rowling, who in 1997, when she came out with the first Harry Potter book, was told by her publishers that you should write as J.K. Rowling because no young boy who picks up a book by a woman writer is going to be buying it or reading it. So we need to change all that. Today there are so many women authors in the field, and still most of the biggest, the notable literary prizes in the world invariably go to men. You look at the best-selling lists in India, for instance, and it's all full of male names. There's hardly any woman there. So we need to change all that, and that's the reason we decided to start the Women Author Awards.
We go back to the Indian history, there have been the number of females who have been known for their work in the field of literacy and the work in the field of, I would say that the ancient writings. Few of the names when we talk, we always remember the Brahmi, Sundari, Gargi, Maitreyi. So, I mean, in fact, from thousands of years, this has been the history in the Indian side. But few hundreds years when we see, we have lost that. And in fact, what we thought that, can we revive this and truly honor some of our female writers and the women writers. So in that journey, we have been associated, and we are very pleased to collaborate with Times of India to award the women writers. As a JK paper, we have been promoting this art of writing because when we talk about the communication, in fact, the instant communication is a verbal communication when we talk, and to some kind of a sustainable communication is writing on a paper. And that is what we are promoting, that write more so that you keep a sustained communication. In fact, in the olden days, the permanent communication used to be the Shillalekh on the rocks. And so these are the three modes of communication, I would say. So sustained communication is the paper. And in fact, as a JK paper, we have been promoting this activity that we do more writing so that we have a more sustained communication. And we translate our thought on a piece of paper so that is a storage, that is the archives, and we keep that for years and ages so that we preserve the culture, we preserve the thoughts, and we preserve the science.
JK Paper and the Times of India have joined hands to bring together for the first time India's most coveted Women Author Awards to celebrate and break the shackles for passionate and aspiring women writers. We are determined to bring about a positive change both by supporting writers and inspiring readers.